Yo, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Amos here, back at it again with another video. Today we're going to be doing what if Asta had a leveling system. Black Clover is probably one of my favorite animes to date, and solo leveling, I had already read the entirety of the manga before the anime had even came out, so when the anime did come out, it was just such a more nice thing to see because I just enjoyed it that much. In combining these two, I really just wanted to see how the story would change and just how much stronger Asta could potentially be in a situation like this. So please, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you guys can get caught up with all the latest videos that I will be posting. But please enjoy. So, to begin the story off, we're not going to start off when Asta's young or anything like that. We're going to start it off on the day of the going to get the grimoires. The main reason of this is because, one, Asta's life would be the exact same up until this point. There would be no reason to change it whatsoever at all, strictly due to the fact of the leveling system wouldn't show up until he's almost in a dying situation. So, we would be at the day of the grimoire ceremony, and everything would go quite literally the exact same. Asta still doesn't get a grimoire this time around and is forced to kind of just notice that he's not going to get any type of thing, and he's feeling the exact same way as normal. Kind of everything's really relatively gone up the exact same way. This time around though, once they're heading home and Asta and Yuno are basically just chilling around, the chain mage would come around this time, and this time they would have a little more of a struggle. They would have quite a bit more of a struggle, leading to the point where Asta is basically almost killed. To the point that Asta literally has like over 5 seconds before he's almost dead. The chain mage was not playing around today, and he strictly went straight for the kill for Asta, since he wasn't useful and he wasn't necessary whatsoever at all. Asta, now being on the ground, just laying there almost dying, would notice something. He is seconds away from death, and he would just kind of notice that everything's almost going black until right there and then. The world seems to freeze in his point of view, and while his vision's already getting blurry, he notices something. An alarm saying, "Welcome player." It's something that says, "You are 5 seconds away from dying. Would you like to accept the system? Would you like to become a player?" And Asta, even though he wouldn't know what this means, would be told that, basically understand that he will survive if he presses this. He will understand that he will be able to kind of get a second chance at life if he accepts this. So he would end up completely just accepting it and knocking out, being completely incapacitated and just going to sleep right there and then. As right while he's asleep, Yuno would be able to deal with the chain mage, or at least deal with him long enough that other people can come in and help him get out of the situation. Obviously, Yuno would be extremely worried for Asta. He would notice that Asta is not, like, he's alive, he's breathing fine, and he's not like the same injured as he normally would have been, but he at least sees that Asta's not waking up for anything. Yuno would pick up Asta and take him back to the church and really just wait until Asta would wake up. While Asta would be asleep, Yuno, Sister Lily, and the father, like Father Orsi, would notice something very weird going around. By the time that Asta would wake up, he would look almost entirely different. The system coming into Asta's body would have noticed one thing, and they would have specifically adjusted the stats to where his body already was, meaning his strength level would be maxed out. And I mean almost completely maxed out because of how hard he had been training already. So his body would go through an extreme modification of a couple days where while he's sleeping, his body's just kind of reorganizing itself to match where Asta's body would normally be with the strength that he now has. Meaning that instead of being this little short kid that he normally would have been, he would now get up to basically well taller than Yuno and around the same height as Yami. Asta originally only being around 5'1" would have skyrocketed to a height of around 6'3", 6'4". His height would have increased so dramatically that when he wakes up, he would automatically be sore from how much he just grew. He would be not in pain because that's the main reason that the system specifically put him to sleep for almost 3 to 5 days straight. But he would really just notice that something weird is going on. And when he eventually does stand up, he would notice that what is going on here? Like, why am I so absolutely tall? Why am I so massive out of the sudden? He would like be looking at everybody all around him, and everybody is quite a bit shorter than he remembers. He looks at Yuno and just goes like, when did you get so short? And Yuno's like, nah, you got tall out of nowhere. Tell us what's going on. And Asta, obviously not knowing what's going on, he would just kind of assume that like he might have gotten magic or something, or like his abilities might have finally kicked in. So he would just be very, very confused. He would obviously just try going like out of the way just for a couple minutes and just kind of tell everybody that he's gonna go do something real quick, and he'll be back in about like an hour or so, just so he can kind of figure out what's going on. As he would first like just start walking around trying to get used to his new height, since it's kind of is a very weird feeling when you gain a growth spurt out of nowhere and you kind of have to readjust of all of your normal motor functions. But he would go out and he would see messages just kind of flowing around. He would see his stats system basically going strength, durability, intelligence, agility, sense, and then at the bottom of the thing saying magic. He would be looking around and he would see that his strength is maxed out. His durability is fairly quite high, and almost all of the other like anything relating to his like actual body is in the higher portion of anything normal, due to the fact of how much he trained his body up until then. He would see all of the things that normally would be there, like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups and all of that, but that's so light work for Asta that I don't even think that they would even bother doing anything like that, because his body would already be in the pristine condition. He doesn't have to do any kind of strength training because he's been doing it his entire life. So when he would actively like look up on like a message that he wasn't really like completely looking at, he would see you have 5 stat points to be able to allocate into the place of your choosing. And as soon as he sees that, it will just basically automatically be magic, 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 magic. He would put all 5 stat points into magic because all of his other stats are fairly well rounded off, and this is still Asta, so he still has all of the base abilities that he already had anyways. So he would already be extremely stronger than most normal people would be in any right. So he would just have these magic things, and as soon as he puts those 5 points into magic, he would basically see something that wouldn't be really obviously normal, and I'm just going to be adding this for my own strict pleasure because it just feels like it would be a little fun thing to add. And this would be a situation where it is sort of like a spin the wheel, where depending on which one he gets, it'll give him this magical attribute. And on this list would be light, darkness, like nature, like whatever, fire, water, like earth, like wind or whatever. And it would be all of these different magical attributes on a spin the wheel. And as soon as he basically just spins, he would land on something, noticing that for the first time now he has an actual ability to magic. Obviously, for the first one that I'm just going to give him, it wouldn't even be shadows because he doesn't really need that as of right now. He would get something more, just hilariously enough, just a little different. He would get wind. just because of the fact of that is what I want to give him. He just lands on wind, which would obviously be exactly similar to but he wouldn't really know exactly what's going on. So as soon as he gets wind, he would be very ecstatic and just try testing it out for a little bit, and he would notice that he actually has this wind attribute. When it comes to something like the actual Shadow Monarch abilities, I'm gonna kind of rename that in a sort of sense to just be a kind of nullification magic. It's not going to be the same as anti-magic, because anti-magic is still going to be a thing that's going to be mentioned a little bit later, but it's going to be more of like a shadow magic nullification, where within a specific range of where he is, he will be able to nullify any magic that isn't based around darkness. Any magic that isn't just based around absolute shadows or anything else like that. So when it comes to something like Yami or Noct or almost anybody else that has a shadow related ability, they would be fine and they would be able to work perfectly fine in tandem. But anybody else, teammates or enemy included, wouldn't be able to do anything, which would be a basically double-edged weapon. So that's kind of how everything would really play out right now. I am actually going to re-say what I just said earlier, specifically revolving around the strength, because he would still need to do any of the regular strength things so he can still gain more stat points, because it's not going to be I just give him all of these stat points off the bat just so he can be able to allocate them all into these own specific abilities. But he would obviously make it back to the church, and he would make it back to the orphanage and kind of just tell everybody that he did get his magical abilities. As soon as he actually would do that, he would quite literally just head over and tell everybody if he could head over to the place that they do the grimoires, just kind of just recheck. Obviously this wouldn't be normal, and he would just go and they would let him, and once he gets there, everyone that had already known Asta would be extremely confused. This is somebody that they've known almost their entire lives, and he looks completely different. Most people would only recognize Asta because he somewhat still has similar face shapes, but besides that, he basically had to grab and find all new clothing anyways. He had to grab all new clothes because now he doesn't fit any of the ones that he used to even wear. And now he looks quite a bit older than he normally would have anyways. So that's another reason why he had to go into town anyways. So he goes there, he goes to the grimoire place and checks if he can get a grimoire. And this time around, he gains a grimoire. This time around, this grimoire isn't anything like you would have ever expected. He is still going to get the anti-magic grimoire, but that is not going to be something that he uses actively for himself. It would be a situation where for the next around 2 weeks before they head over to the capital, Asta would be grinding, specifically due to the grimoire that he got. And this grimoire would be a 4-leaf clover grimoire that is blank. That is completely blank with a specific max amount of pages that all it says is system magic. It is that in its own name. And as soon as he opens it, he just sees wind attribute as his first ability. He is very confused about this because when he scrolls through the rest of the pages, it is completely blank and he has no clue what's going on. And when even looks at it once he gets home, Asta and both of them everyone is confused. They have no idea and no clue what is possibly going on here because of the fact of this isn't how it's normally supposed to work. This isn't how it's supposed to go. You're supposed to have a specific magic or whatever. And Asta and obviously are kind of excited because now they have the same magical attribute, but Asta obviously would just continue on doing the normal scales and everything else like that, gaining all the newbie points that he would be gaining around the 3 points per day, and he would be putting them all into other things. He would obviously mainly put a lot of them into magic so he can gain more magic and just gain a more amount of mana. Well, magic and mana would just kind of be two separate things. He put all of his first one into magic because he didn't really notice anything, but he would have put at least one of them into mana because he didn't notice something originally. Well, he had to notice something off bat that I didn't mention earlier. This being the fact of he wasn't allowed to actively press magic until he at least pressed 1 into mana. So he put 1 into mana and 4 of them into magic, and basically leaves up to the same exact situation that I've already specified until now. But now he would be basically doing the exact same thing, putting them almost all solely into magic and mana, to the point that his mana input really grows tremendously, and the amount of magic that he has kind of grows even more alongside with it. Obviously, him being already so strong would eventually get him right before he is able to even gain anything specifically. He would get to the point where he gains a dungeon key and is able to open a dungeon. By this point, his magic abilities and his magic attributes has gone up from around 4 to around like 15. And his mana has gone up from like 1 to around like 5 to 10. So he is still like on the lower side of mana, but his magic is gone up so well that he ended up getting something in around like air, and this led to him getting an extra class of magic because of the fact that he got these two magics that worked so well together. Getting wind and air led him to getting almost another one, but only after he got water. Wind, air, and water. Wind and water specifically. So basically air and water ended up gaining him the ability to use soul magic, due to the fact of the human body specifically needs air and water to function in almost any format. So he would have these 3 specific abilities now into his arsenal. Giving him all of these specific things would also, obviously, as I've already said, he would gain this dungeon key, because now he's gotten to the point that he's strong enough. And Asta obviously hasn't gone to the penalty zone as of yet, because he would have no real reason to. He's really just upping his stats for no reason at this point, because he's already maxed out. And he hasn't had any kind of real thing where he has to level up as of yet. He's just been doing like basic training that really doesn't bother him too much. So he has to deal with something along the lines of, first of all, gaining something like just like a small sword or small weapon to be able to use in case he needs it. But obviously he has magic, so he won't really need any specific weapon as of that. Once he would enter this dungeon from the key that he got, it would be the situation of him very easily dealing with all of the lower level monsters, gaining a lot of XP and leveling up quite a bit, to the point that like mid battle, that's when he would finally notice like the actual full thing saying that he has this shadow nullification magic. This is where he would actively get it. And yes, you might be going like, oh, I'm going a little fast, but that's mainly because he is still lacking on the actual mana portion. His mana was at complete 0. So while his strength might be at like 1,000 or whatever, his mana was at 0. So he's still lacking on that, and he just managed to get a good 4-leaf clover grimoire because of the fact of the system wouldn't have given him anything less than the best. So while he's dealing with all of these fodder and eventually dealing with a little more struggle when it comes to some of these bigger monsters, because the key actively calculated for his actual strength and all of his stats as right at that point in time, eventually they would start giving him more of an actual challenge, to the point that he was struggling a little more with the fact that he already had like a wind magic and a water magic. It would have basically made it a lot easier for him to kind of be able to maneuver around and kind of do a lot of the things and just really help him out so extremely much, to the point that eventually once he got to the boss room, he would be fairly well ready. He would have gone from around level like 0 to around like level 5 to 10. He would have gained a lot of XP from this because of how much that he was just actively grinding. He would have gained almost as much levels as Sung Jin Woo gained when he had to go through his first dungeon. And at the end of it would be something that he wasn't even expecting. This is where he would basically get his own version of Igris. And I'm just going to have him get it before he gets into the Magic Knights, because it just makes more sense to have him a lot earlier. This specifically being the boss of this would be Libe. This time around, Libe obviously still has the same relationship with Asta's mom, and we're not going to change any of that. But Libe was just kind of put in here for stores because, like, why not? I just want him to still have some access to anti-magic, and obviously Libe having anti-magic would really not allow Asta to use almost any type of his magic, but that really wouldn't affect Asta whatsoever. He would just go full brunt force, go just normal strength, and this would be a very, very crazy thing to see because Asta would just be dominating. Yes, he is struggling quite a bit because Libe has his anti-magic, so Asta can't do anything along those lines, but his strength, speed, and all of his normal abilities are still so well high that he is actively able to deal quite a bit of damage to the point that he takes Libe down to the point that now he's able to say the correct words. Libe is almost basically dead. Not like obviously dead, but like, well, he's basically dead. We're just gonna say that. And Asta would now be able to say the words, arise. Libe would rise up after around 1 or 2 tries, and Asta would now have a basic general, Libe being his replacement for Igris. Asta obviously would have also gained a couple other just shadows to be able to deal with as soon as he figured out that he had this shadow extraction ability and like shadow control ability. So he still ended up grabbing a couple of the others, lesser beings, and just using those as shadows, obviously having to still give up a couple just to get Libe. And this would have worked out almost perfectly for him because now he has like somebody of decent strength under him. By the time that eventually they would make it to the active capital zone and make it to the capital for the entrance exams, they would both be quite a bit stronger because Asta and Yuno had been practicing and training now that they both had abilities to be able to work together very well with. So it would be a very, very big thing for Asta. And Asta would have obviously still been grinding, and at this point having a decent amount of magic, he wanted to kind of focus a lot more on his mana. Getting his mana to at least a fairly good level to where he would assume Yuno's was. So he was actively out here training, gaining his mana from around 5 to 10 to closer to 50 to 100 from all of the stats and like all of the levels and all of the extra points that he gained while he was in the dungeon, and just put almost all of those strictly into mana, because you could have a very bad, like a very not amazing magic, but if you have an extreme source of mana, you can be able to use it to the best of your abilities. And that's exactly what he's doing. So they would make it to the capital, and Asta, now having a fairly decent supply of mana compared to any normal person, would now be fairly ready. He would head over to the capital, and they would be at the Coliseum where everything was taking place. And this time around, Asta obviously would have a grimoire that everybody would be able to recognize. Yuno would go first, and everyone would see it's a 4-leaf clover grimoire. And they would all be shocked, obviously, as normal. But then Asta goes. He also has a 4-leaf. Everyone's even more flabbergasted. Everyone's even more confused because these are two like no-name people that have just come in with 4-leaf clover grimoires. As once they're all just waiting, this time around, Asta has 0 birds anywhere near him. He might not have like the world's most strongest amount of mana, like in terms of this, but he has a decent amount of mana up until this point. But the main thing that's keeping all of the birds away is just the pressure that he gives off. The normal pressure that isn't even his mana that he's giving off right now is absolutely enormous. Obviously, Asta probably would still be the same person that he normally would have been, so he would still bump into Yami the same way that he normally would have. But obviously, this time, he is taller than Yami, and he is quite very well built and obviously extremely attractive, if we're being fair. So this entire time that he was walking through the capital, all of the girls were just basically looking at him as like, wow, this guy is like extremely attractive for no reason whatsoever. But he would like walk past Yami and like kind of bump into him the same way, but this time he wouldn't even really budge at all because his strength is just so high. As Yami would just be like, you looking to die, kid, or whatever, and Asta just like kind of gained quite a bit more confidence up until this point, and he's gaining more of that Sungjin Woo mentality where he's just like not really taking anything. So Asta just kind of keeps it pushing, and Yami is a little like, a little indifference to this because like this kid is fairly big, as like they would still have like their a little small confrontation, but once like all of the events would start, Asta would just be really doing very well average. He would be kind of doing as well as up until this point. He would be out here actively doing the exact same movements as just kind of standing up, really just chilling out. He really wouldn't even need to use any kind of wand or like any kind of broom anyways, because he has like wind magic. So he just kind of lifts himself up in the air and flies by himself, because that's just something he's going to be able to do. And I like that. But obviously for any of like the combat parts, Asta just completely dominates. It would be a situation that obviously this time around, Asta doesn't look like he's the weakest. So Seke is not just going to come up to Asta and be like, oh, you look like you're weak. Like, let me be the one to fight you and like kind of help you out. This time around, nah. People are actually like looking for Asta like as a normal fight. So he finds and gets someone normal, and he's able to still just dominate them without any very big problem. He would have like been able to kind of notice when he bumped into Yami that something was similar about him. So the reason that he chooses the Black Bulls this time around would simply just be due to that fact. The fact that he felt some kind of similarity between them, and he was trying to figure out exactly what that was. As obviously the main difference is this time around, everybody wanted to take Asta, or at least a good portion of them wanted to take Asta because of how strong he was, due to like how well he was doing. And it's like the Golden Dawn, everybody was considering taking Asta this time around. It was like basically the exact same as obviously taking the Golden Dawn the same way that he normally did, and Asta taking the Black Bulls, which would surprise everybody, even Yami. He would choose them, and the entirety of all of the captains and everybody would just be like, why would you take the worst team when you had options to go to the best team out of everything? And also just like, one, he really didn't care whatsoever, because why would he? Like, it isn't something that's really going to be too hard pressed for him to even consider doing, because of the fact that, well, this isn't a main big issue for him. He's just Asta, and he's not really being bothered about any of this. Obviously, Yami would be surprised, but he would take it. It's somebody that he can get, so it's a fairly good thing. And Asta is still considered a misfit in all fairness, so it's not really anything very big majorly about that. As eventually they would head over to the active like Black Bulls hideout, and it would be the same introduction this time around, as like Yami would basically just go and tell everybody to introduce themselves. Everybody would, but all of the girls would just kind of be like, wow, this is a hunk or whatever. Like Vanessa, any of like the other people would just be like even the guys would just be like, bro, why is this guy so attractive? Like, not like no homo or whatever. Like, they would just all be like, bro, this is a good looking dude for no reason. They would just all automatically just immediately think that. So Magma would still be like, okay, we still need to test your strength or whatever, and also would just do that just to appease them or whatever. And this time around, like, it's not even anything that he's even trying to be bothered with. He would just start testing out his shadow nullification ability and create a zone just big enough for him and Magma to be in. And Magma would notice that he can't even use any of his magic. As soon as Magna says that, everybody else would try that, and they would all notice that once they step into like his vicinity, they can't use any of their magic either. Like, it's just not working. Like, something pops out and then just like poof, nothing there. Yami would be intrigued in this and try doing something, like nothing like obviously that's gonna harm Asta, but just try using his magic in the zone, and Yami would still be perfectly fine. Like, the only reason like they know the zone is up because it kind of like gives like this black fog effect in like this circular radius. They would just be extremely confused on what's going on, but Yami, noticing that he can still use his abilities, would just basically start piecing things together along with Asta, and Asta would just be like, so shadow abilities and shadow magic still works within my zone, trying to just kind of, put something together as of any kind of thing. As obviously they would continue on, and Asta would very easily get in because now he has a very cool ability that everyone's really wondering like how it's supposed to work. And he just kind of continues on with his normal day. As this is where I'm going to be leaving the part off, because anything else that I want to talk about will be getting talked about fairly well. But I just wanted to know if you guys did enjoy this video. I am going to be trying to do a lot more Black Clover content because I really do enjoy it, and it's probably one of my favorite animes to do what ifs on. So please, if you guys got any other ideas that you guys would like me to do, please comment them down in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.